And welcome back to Hannity. Now, on this day 50 years ago, 250,000 people gathered in our nation's capital to march on Washington for racial equality. Now, on that historic day, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. He delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Earlier, President Barack Obama, our first black president, he spoke on those same steps. And joining us now with reaction to this historic day, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s niece, Dr. Alveda King, and she also is the Director of African American Outreach for Priests for Life, and also a professor, of course, in neurosurgery, Johns Hopkins, now retired, Fox News contributor himself, Dr. Ben Carson. Guys, good to see you both.
It's good to see you.
Very nice to see you, Sean.
You wrote a column, Dr. Carson. MLK would be alarmed by black-on-black violence, lack of family values. Where are we 50 years later?
Well, you know, I think that he would be very pleased with some of the positions that blacks have achieved. No one raises their eyebrows now when they see a black CEO or airline captain or college president, maybe the president of the United States. So those are tremendous strides that have been made. But the problem is when you look in the black community, you see 73% babies being born out of wedlock, tremendous black-on-black crime, more black males involved in the penal system than ever, dropout rates which are tremendous. And, you know, that's very alarming because, you know, Dr. King and many others put their lives on the line to open those doors of opportunity, particularly the doors of education, and you almost have to drag some people through them. We really need to put the emphasis in a very different place. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that there aren't problems out there, but, you know, we have the mechanism to take care of those problems. You can wallow in problems, or you can just buck up and say, I'm going to deal with this.
You know, actually, Alveda, the president, I thought he gave a good speech today, and I'm not one that's a big fan of his in any way. He talked about the magnitude of progress, and not to acknowledge that is to dishonor all of those who fought, and they really fought and put their lives on the line. I didn't like some of the comments of other speakers. Multiple references made to Trayvon Martin. Dr. King's daughter, Bernice King, comparing the state of Florida to Syria. We had another speaker, you know, comparing the Supreme Court justices to the KKK. I don't blame the president for their remarks, but I was unhappy. What was your reaction?
Well, hello, Sean and Dr.
Hi.
Carson. I was listening to Dr.
Hi.
Carson and you as well. So I listened to most of the speakers, almost all of them, including the president, my cousins. On the other hand, what I brought away from that was something that Martin III said, my cousin Martin, and my cousin Bernice King, the CEO of the King Center. They both talked about agape love, about unifying, about coming together, because it's causes that divide us, and it's Christ's love for me that unites us. So we can have really differing opinions and different viewpoints, but if we cannot learn to live together as brothers, and now I add as sisters, we'll perish as fools. So whatever our differences happen to be, we're going to have to approach that in the manner that Martin Luther King Jr. taught 50 years ago. We walked away from the spiritual formula, and I believe that that's missing, along with all the other concerns that Dr. Carson just mentioned. You
know, the president came in office 5 years ago, hope and change, excitement, and a nation energized, great expectations, if you will. If you look at statistics, I don't think he's done a very good job for most Americans. Let me ask specifically, is black America better off with him having been president under his policies, forgetting about issues of color? Dr. Carson.
Well, I don't think any part of America is better off, to be honest with you. I mean, you look at the number of jobs that have been lost, and it's the labor force participation rate, by the way, that we should be looking at, not the monthly job numbers. Those are easy to manipulate, but the labor force participation rate is not, and it's at a 30-year low. People are dropping out. And we've created a system now where it's actually easier for somebody to sit at home and be dependent than to go and get a minimum wage job. They actually get more money by sitting at home in several states. And honestly, I don't blame them, you know, for thinking that way. But they need to think more long term, because if you're in the job market, you're acquiring and maintaining skills. You're being exposed to opportunities. You have an opportunity to move up. And I think that's what's kind of missing. We used to have this dream of this aspiration to move upward, and now people are just kind of satisfied to maintain.
Alveda, one thing the president did say that that Dr. King would have liked Obamacare. You knew him? I mean, where was he politically?
Sean, I knew my uncle very well. My daddy, Reverend A.D. King, his brother, they trained me in the civil rights movement. I marched and even went to jail. And as they marched in 1963, my mother along with them, where our home had been bombed, President Kennedy died that year, the girls were killed in the church, all of that was happening. And yet they were boldly able to march for jobs, for decent housing, and better education. And those are the things that we would like to see. My uncle would agree, and I do agree, that all Americans and all people deserve health care. However, Martin Luther King now has a granddaughter, and I don't think that he would think giving her free contraceptives when she's a little older and free access to abortion is going to help her get a job, a house, or a better education.
All right, guys, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it. And